What is up with it, everybody? Live from the studios of WIUR from the Murphy Center at Iona University. Mondays, 11:04 a.m. on Monday, November 24th, 2025. Thanksgiving week here. Hopefully, everybody's getting their stuff into order. Obviously, the big week, everybody's getting assignments in their classes. I know I've got a couple edits I have to do. I know I've got a paper I've got to write. But overall, I've got my ducks in a row. I'd like to think I have them in a row. But anyways, we got some sports to talk about. I'll be keeping you company for the next hour. Leading here, we got the New York Football Giants. Big news, obviously, this morning, bright and early, too. It's like right when I woke up, I opened Twitter or Instagram and I found it. Shane Bowen has finally been fired. I'm a little shocked. I thought they were going to carry him through the rest of the year because apparently, like 4 blown leads of 10 or more points is fine, but 5, apparently, that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, whatever. Anyone with a brain knew this should have happened immediately after the Cowboys game in week 2. Anybody knew that that was the defensive scheme that didn't work. And instead of being proactive, the Giants and effectively this entire coaching staff died on their lack of willingness to fire Shane Bowen. And now here are some stats to illustrate just how awful this defense has been under Shane Bowen. 5 losses while leading by 10 or more points. That is tied for the most in a single season in NFL history. Now, depending on how the interim guy is going to do, that may be a record that ends up getting broken, especially considering that it's probably going to be the same system. I don't expect a lot of things to change. They are giving up 5.5 yards per carry, on pace to be the worst run defense in NFL history. So, over a century of NFL football, no run defense has been as bad as this one. Shockingly, when you look at the list, there are a lot of teams that have made the playoffs. Actually, the 2006 Indianapolis Colts are one of the teams that are on that list, and they won the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. Apparently, the run defense isn't that big of a factor, apparently. I don't know, but it's still historically bad. And in 29 games under his leadership, the Giant defense has only gotten 10 interceptions. So not really not forcing turnovers at all. And you can make the argument that in terms of coordinator performances, this season, Shane Bowen might have the case to be the worst coordinator ever on either side of the ball, because this is historically bad. The New York Giants are 2-10 right now. If they hold on to all of those leads while they were leading by 10, they'd be 7-5. If they held on to, say, a couple other games, they'd be, 8-4, maybe even 9-3. You can argue that there were 6 games that Shane Bowen is kind of solely responsible for. Is you had that Packers game, you had the Bears game, just so many games that would have been won if the defensive scheming was a little more aggressive and was a little better. Because, dude, so much soft zone. I watched the play. I think it was in the 4th quarter drive before the Jake Bates field goal. Shocker. Kicker hits long field goal as time expires against the Giants. In other news, the sky's blue. I don't know. It's not a shock anymore that kickers just hit really absurdly long field goals against the Giants. And, Jake Bates, no exception, especially in a dome. There was no shot on earth that he was missing that. And I saw this one play, I think it was on a 2nd down, where they blitzed and a free rusher got in. I think it was the safety who got in, and Goff was forced to roll out, and it forced an incompletion. That play drove me up a wall because Shane Bowen just refuses to do stuff like that, even though it works. He plays this soft zone scheme when all of the corners and defensive backs specialize in man because they were brought in for a completely different guy. And when they play man coverage when they're not leading and when it's not late, they're actually getting stops. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, he decides to crawl into this really just soft shell where it makes it really easy for the quarterback to just sit in the pocket and dissect everything. It's ridiculous. You give receivers 10, 15-yard cushions, and all it takes is just a dig route. A mesh pattern against the Giants, it'll kill them. A slant route? Gee, forget it. Anything that is less than 25 yards downfield, even then, 25 yards downfield, there's still giant just pockets of nothing in the middle of the field where receivers have so much separation. It's like, look at, like, how many times did Amon-Ra St. Brown get wide open over the middle in that game? Think about it. And that is squarely on scheming. That is squarely on a lack of aggression. That is squarely on not knowing how to maximize the wealth of talent that you have on that side of the ball. And to be honest, with a better defensive coordinator, they're a playoff team. Hell, I'll go even further. We'd be talking about the division right now, even with the injuries, because they're still putting up points. I mean, Jesus, offense hasn't been the problem, certainly. I'm going to look at league rankings real quick and see where the Giants stack up against other teams in terms of like the offense, because they put up yards and they put up points. Yesterday, I mean, goodness. I mean, let's look at yardage. The Giants are first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th. They're 11th in the league in yards per game. And in points per game, oh, wait, actually, they're in the bottom half of the league in points per game. Ignore that. But they're still gaining yards. I mean, total yardage, I know there's been bye weeks, but in total yardage in the NFL, the Giants are 5th. So they're doing a lot on the offensive side of the ball. And that, mind you, this is without Malik Neighbors, and this is without Cam Scatterbo for most of the year. And I'll even say without Jackson Dart. Because most of the, like, think about it, 5 games, they were starting either Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. And I'll get to Jameis, dude. God bless him. God bless that guy. He is just so fun to watch. And, you know, if the defensive scheming was a little better, then they think about the games they would have won. They would have won the Dallas game. They would have won the Denver game. You could argue they would have won the second Philly game. They would have won the Bears game. They would have won the Saints game. They would have won the Packer game. They would have won the Niner game. Or I don't know, maybe the Niner game. I'll give them a little leeway on that. They wouldn't have won the Niner game. They would have won. Okay, start from scratch. They would have won. They would have beaten Dallas. They would have beaten New Orleans. They would have beaten Denver. They would have beaten Philly the second time. They would have beaten, or I'm not going to count Philly the second. They would have beaten Chicago. They would have beaten Green Bay. They would have beaten Detroit. That is 7 games. That is the difference between 2-10 and 9-3. The Giants would be leading the NFC East right now if they knew how to play defense, or if they had a semi-competent defensive coordinator. They would be 9-3 against one of the hardest schedules in football. This team would have been a bona fide Super Bowl contender. That is how awful Shane Bowen was for this team, and I am so glad I don't have to see him on the sideline anymore, because it got to a point where just his face made you angry. I couldn't stand to look at him because he had, like, you could tell just by looking at him, he had no idea what he was doing. He had no command over that locker room. He had no command over his star players. I mean, Abdul Carter was literally sleeping in meetings, and can you blame him? And if you looked at the clips, even during the wins, like during that Thursday night game against the Eagles where they won, when Shane Bowen tried dapping up his players and hyping them up, they just ignored him. So he had no respect. There was no love for him in that building. And despite that, there was such an addiction to keeping the status quo and maintaining the way things were run and not rocking the boat and not being too rash. Yeah, that lackadaisical line of thinking is the sole reason why you aren't in a playoff spot right now. That lackadaisical line of thinking is why Brian Dable is out of a job. And, it falls on him because he went down with his ship. You could argue that Shane Bowen alone sunk this entire coaching staff. And it's costing Mike Kafka a shot at this job full time. I don't know if he's going to get a chance somewhere else. I think he deserves a shot as a full-time head coach. I don't hate the way that they don't look that poorly coached, especially on offense. Because defense, I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt for the rest of the year. I think defense, I'm going to wait to pass out judgment on this defense in terms of the players until next year when they have a new guy leading them who is presumably better because again, as for the reasons I've listed, Shane Bowen is historically awful. And again, if they win all those games, they're 9-3 and they're leading the NFC East and they're tied for the number 1 seed. That is the difference that Shane Bowen has made this year. If they win all the games where they're leading by 10 or more points, they're 7-5 and deep in the playoff hunt, especially considering the teams they would have beaten that they blew leads against. Winning against the Lions, that's a big get if you're in the playoff hunt. If you're 7-5 and you beat the Lions, drop them to 6-5-1. That's a huge deal. Or no, wait, the Lions aren't 6-5-1. They're 6-5. Yeah, that's a big difference, especially you get the head-to-head on them. That's huge. Beating the Bears, that's a big win. Beating the Packers, big win. Those are 3 wins against the NFC North, who are all teams who are competing in the playoff race, that if you beat them and if you hold all those leads, you are firmly in a wild card spot. And going down the stretch where you have an easy schedule for the rest of the year, you have a game against the Commanders at home, you have a game against the Raiders, I believe, at home, and then you have a game against the Vikings at home. And then you have the Cowboys at home, who don't really have a defense. Well, I mean, they've been playing a lot better lately. I'll give my respect to the Cowboys, or maybe that's just the Eagles. I don't know what's going on with the rest of the NFC East. It's just so discombobulated. But on to my thoughts about this game. To be honest, I'm oddly positive because, like, even though they're 2-10, and I know that, the Bill Parcells quote, "You are what your record says you are," yada, yada, yada. This is kind of the best 2-10 team ever. I've seen Giant teams that were 4-8 that objectively sucked. When I look at this team, I honestly don't see a team that really sucks. I just see a team that has a bad defense. Sure, their defense sucks, but their offense, they can, again, as I mentioned before, they can get yards and put up points. Dude, they're flying. Jameis Winston is incredibly entertaining, and I don't have to take his starts seriously. Dude, that touchdown catch that he had, where he like beat a defender soundly one-on-one, that is my favorite play I've seen a Giant make since the Odell Beckham catch. That was I was on the floor laughing. or not on the floor, but I was laughing. That was hilarious to watch him catch a tie. And then he was doing the dice celebration. That was so fun. Yeah, I love watching him. I know he's probably going to get starter money somewhere else, but I really want him to stay on this roster as long as humanly possible because Jackson Dart, he runs like a maniac. So chances are he's going to get hurt a few more times. And Jameis Winston, he puts you in positions to win games. I mean, dude, he's slinging the rock all over the place. He put up, dude, they had like 500 yards of offense yesterday. That was not the issue. Jameis Winston was not the issue. Of course, I went up against him in fantasy and he kind of killed me this week, but that's beside the point. Dude, Jameis Winston, he's so fun to watch. And he's like his quotes. I mean, I'd love to be the reporter tasked with going up to him after the game. That would be so fun. Oh my God. Actually, I just got a text. Jameis Winston is on a 2-year contract. So that's cool. He'll stick around for at least next year. But after that, I want him to be Jackson Dart's backup for the rest of his career. I know that's not realistic, but the two just have a really good dynamic and he's really fun to watch. And I love watching Jameis Winston play football because, again, I don't have to take it seriously. When Russell Wilson started games, it still gave me the vibe that it had to be taken seriously. And I didn't like watching Russell Wilson. That he was like, and I know hindsight is 2020, but dude, Jameis Winston is your starter. Dude, football deserves that. Even if you didn't plan on drafting Dart to begin with, Jameis Winston starting a full year's worth of games, you're telling me that wouldn't be just gold for TV? That would be amazing. And this offense in general just rocks. Like they can be a real unit going forward. I mean, that even without Neighbors or Scatterboot or Dart, they were putting up yards. I mean, especially these are two guys that they cannot let walk, especially knowing their cap space. Isaiah Hodgins, I don't know why they keep letting him walk. He's like a yo-yo. It's like they keep throwing him out and then bringing him back, throwing him out, bringing him back. And I don't know why, because every time he steps on the field, he just balls out. He's a good possession receiver. I rarely see him drop anything. He's a decent route runner. And to keep him on as a wide receiver 4, when guys get hurt, that's a good guy to have around. And also, Wan'Dale Robinson. Under no circumstances should Wan'Dale Robinson be on another team next year. And Darius Slayton, I don't care if you have to attach draft picks to him, get him the hell out. Get him the hell out. I am sick of looking at him. He is a loser. He has loser energy. They signed him to that contract. I don't know why. And especially considered like they don't use him, even though they signed him to be a wide receiver 2. Even with the wide receiver 1 out, he's barely seeing any reps. Like Darius Slayton, he makes like 2 good catches a year and then he just dips. And like you see him, you don't notice him. And then you look at the end of your stats and you say, really? Darius Slayton had 750 yards? Like, get him out. Get him out. I don't care if he does well on our team. Darius Slayton, the New York Giant, has to be gone. I cannot deal with looking at his face anymore. I don't care. Again, attach a draft pick to him if you want to get rid of the contract. I do not care. Get him out of the building. He is a parasite. And Wan'Dale Robinson, he's a top-notch slot guy. He's a matchup nightmare, especially if you push him downfield. Because like when I liked Wan'Dale Robinson even before this year because they limited him severely. He was restricted to just 3-yard button hooks as like safety blankets. It was awful what they were doing with him. And then out of necessity, they have to actually use him more than 5 yards downfield. And oh my God, what do you know? He is actually pretty good. He's probably going to finish the year with 1,000 yards receiving. And he's leading the league in most receiving stats while lined up from the slot. And that's a valuable guy to have on a team. No, it's time that the Giants need to stop like letting people walk out of the building because, oh, that position's not really a weakness. We already have something there. It's time to make certain positions a strength, a real elite strength. And if you have Wandale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins on this roster next year with Malik Neighbors, with a potential draft pick like Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson, that is a super, just a ridiculous elite unit that a really good quarterback is throwing to. And while we're at it, I don't know why half this fan base hates Theo Johnson. At his position, he's an elite athlete. I know he has some hands problems, but he's been catching everything lately. And in case you forget, he was what, a 4th round pick or a 6th round pick? All I remember, he was I think he was a day 3 guy. And he has been really good. He's caught, what, 7 touchdowns this year? I don't know why this fan base complains about not having enough talent. And then when there is clearly a talented guy who would start on a majority of teams in this league, they want him to get out. I don't get it. I think Theo Johnson has the upside of being a top 10 tight end. And to round out this Giants segment, before we go to break here, before we talk about the Jets and just general football takes, give me Chris Shula as the next Giant head coach. I watched that Sunday night game. He had Baker Mayfield clueless, and I think given the talent on this defense and given the talent that he has had to work with this year, I think if Chris Shula is the next Giant head coach and is given the keys to that defense, I think he could be really good. Anyways, we're going to throw it a break real quick. Back after this.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Becca Bittner, the host of Iona University's news show, Good Morning Gales. My co-host, Nick Waltieri, and I cover everything that's going on here at Gale Nation. We give you all the buzzing campus news you need to know before your first cup of coffee every Friday morning. Make sure to check out our morning show, along with our sports show, Gale Zone, on our IUTV Instagram and YouTube. With hosts Cam Woolley and Chris Solaro, you'll get sports updates from the Hines Athletic Center to the big leagues. See you there, and as always, go Gales. Now, back to WIUR.
All right, we are back, and we're just going to touch on the Jets and sort of around the horn on football real quick. I mean, with the Jets, what do you want from me on these guys? There's nothing of note here. Like, what am I supposed to say that I and millions of other people haven't already said and no? Am I supposed to gas up John Mechie like every other radio host and say, oh, gee, he looks like a real weapon in the future? Yeah, like Denzel Mims and Braxton Berrios. Spare me that kind of talk because it's pointless, redundant, and serves no purpose outside of filling up dead air. At least with the Giants, there's things to talk about. The Jets, they have nothing. They're a corpse that's going to win enough games to not get the number 1 pick and force Darren Mogi to give up a ridiculous amount of assets to trade up for a quarterback, because that's honestly the only way that team has anything of substance to sell their fans on and sell ownership on and sell anybody in the football world on for the foreseeable future. Because really, think about it. What do the Jets have? All the players that they have right now are either going to get traded or are going to walk. Breece Hall, like it's the worst kept secret in football that he just does not want to be a Jet. He does not want to be there anymore. He just hates it, and I can't blame him because it's the Jets. So Breece Hall is going to walk. The cornerstones on your defense, you traded them at the deadline. So you have really nothing to hang your hat on the defense. I guess you have Garrett Wilson and Armand Membu, but like if you don't draft a quarterback, then it's pointless. So honestly, like you're kind of backing yourself into a corner here where it's like, yeah, I don't care how many draft picks you have where you can get talented players because, dude, you're the Jets. Do you seriously think those players are going to work? Of course not. You have to trade up for a quarterback if you want to sell anybody on your vision going forward, because then it doesn't become about what the roster looks like. It becomes about what the quarterback looks like. And that's really the only way you can get me to really look at these guys from a legit angle. So anyways, yeah, that's it. That's my obligatory Jets flash right there. I'm on to just around the NFL here. I've got a few takes that I want to throw out there. Dude, I know I maintained the Jonathan Taylor take for a while. He was my MVP, but dude, after last night, give it to Matthew Stafford. Come on, I know this is kind of like an IOU, like where it's like, hey, you've been here for a while, we got to give you one. But dude, I got to look up his stats. I know I wrote down some here, but I just want to double check if they're correct. Matthew Stafford's current stat line, he's thrown 30 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. Last night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football in a 34-7 victory, he had a 71.4% completion percentage with 273 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 25 of 35, just beautiful. And he's gone without an interception since week 3. He has not thrown a pick since week 3. Since then, he has thrown 3, 6, 7, 12, 16, 20, 22, 25. He has thrown 25 touchdowns since his last game where he threw an interception. So since September 21st, he's thrown 25 touchdowns with no interceptions. That is an all-time great run from a player who is an overlooked all-time great who should end up in the Hall of Fame and probably will end up in the Hall of Fame. And mind you, too, how old is this guy? He's 37 and he's doing this. He's an old school quarterback. I can't believe I'm saying old school quarterback while talking about guys from the 2010s, but he's a quarterback who doesn't end up in a system and just execute what the system tells him to do. Because if you really think about it, that is what a lot of the elite guys in this league do. Think about like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have been nerfed to just system guys who simply execute. Think about the other MVP candidates. Daniel Jones is a guy who simply executes. And there's nothing wrong with that. It wins you games. I mean, you know what I'd do to win games? But it's ethical quarterbacking. And I appreciate guys like Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, Dak Prescott, guys like that who really are just ethical, solid. You know what you're getting, and they're the guys who are doing it. It's not their system. They're not doing play action rollouts that are like just screen passes or guys that are just schemed open. They go out of the shotgun, 3 guys out wide, and you take the snap, you go through your progressions, and you fire a laser 20 yards downfield. Just beautiful stuff. I love what I've seen. I love what I am seeing, and give Matthew Stafford his flowers. He deserves an MVP. And that's the bottom line. And, another take I have, dude, I talked about Mahomes, dude. The Chiefs are going to find a way to sneak in as the 7 seed and weasel their way into another Super Bowl like the roaches they are. I mean, because I look at the Chiefs, like, how many wins have they had where you can seriously consider them convincing? I'm going to pull up the Chiefs right now. Like, I'm looking at the wins that they've had. Ironically enough, the wins that they have had are more convincing than like all of their wins last year. Against the Giants, they won 22-9. Let's be real. If Dart starts that game, Against the Ravens, fair, that was pretty convincing. Against the Lions, fair, that was pretty convincing. Against the Raiders, that was convincing. Commanders, that was convincing. Against the Colts, they barely kind of got out of there, but they're losing. They're losing a lot more than you're used to. And Thanksgiving in Dallas, that's gonna be interesting. But I mean, I'm looking at their stats right now. Dude, Patrick Mahomes has thrown only 18 touchdowns with 7 interceptions. Like Patrick Mahomes, like sue me, but Patrick Mahomes is not impressive. Man, I'm looking at their receiving. I'm like, yeah, dude, Travis Kelsey's pretty good. But outside of that, their leading wideout has been Rashee Rice. Which, like, yeah, sure, he's been pretty good, 78 yards a game, nothing to sneeze at. But outside of that, I mean, Rashee Rice isn't a top dog. That's not exactly a guy who strikes fear into the eyes of defenses. It's like, dude, you're stitching together Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Noah Gray. Just like I don't like I don't like this. I don't like it. And sure, like Kareem Hunt, like yeah, he's okay, but again, he's just okay. I'm not crazy about him. I mean, it's just so boring. There's just so many boring things about this team. And sure, they're good on defense. They've got a lot of guys, but man, I'm looking at their pass rush. Their leading sack guy is George Karlaftis with 5. I mean, Chris Jones only has 3 sacks, but again, I mean, there are some defensive tackles who are having down years across the board. I mean, Dexter Lawrence, who's apparently dealing with some kind of injury. I found that out during break, but I mean, sure, they've got a good secondary, but nothing is really convincing me about these guys. But again, last year they were the same thing, and then they went and got to the Super Bowl because for some reason they just know how to squeak out wins. And it's annoying. And it's just, I talked about ethical quarterbacking with Matthew Stafford. The Kansas City Chiefs are the polar opposite of an ethical football team because there's nothing aesthetically pleasing about them. Like you watch them play. Like I hate, and of course you watch them play a lot because they're on prime time and they've always got the big CBS game. I feel so bad for Jim Nantz because he is one of the greatest broadcasters that the world has ever seen. And he constantly gets saddled with trying to make Chiefs games sound exciting because they aren't. They just aren't. And anybody who tells you they're exciting is just lying. Sure, it's efficient. Sure, it wins games, but it's not exciting. But despite that, I think they are going to sneak in as the 7 seed, and the NFL is going to have the narrative of, the first 7 seed to ever make it to the Super Bowl. And they're going to find a way to give the Chiefs an underdog narrative. And that's really going to do the AFC title game is going to be Chiefs Broncos. It is going to be the 2 least deserving teams in that entire conference to make it to that game. And they're going to play the just most cursed AFC championship game ever. Because the Broncos, that's another team that really doesn't deserve to be 9-2. Like there are a lot of teams like where their record, like they don't deserve to have that record. I'm looking. Let me look at some of the teams where I can look at their records and I'll say, yeah, they deserve to have that record. Okay, New England Patriots 10-2. They deserve to have that record. They're really good. Drake May is really good. That team in general is really good. Buffalo Bills 7-4. Yeah, they deserve to have that record. They've been the Bills. I'm watching out for them. Dolphins 4-7. Fair. Jets 2-9. Fair. Ravens 6-5. Lamar Jackson was out. Yeah, fair. Steelers 6-5. Fair. Bengals 3-8. Fair. Browns 3-8. Maybe, dude, their defense is really good. Their defense is really, really good. Colts 8-3. Yeah. Yeah, that I can say the Colts. They're an 8-3 caliber team. Jaguars 7-4. Nah. I don't see it. Nope. Nope. Texans 6-5. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, their defense is pretty good. Titans 1-10. Yeah, they're terrible. Broncos 9-2, just went over them. They don't deserve to have that record. Chargers 7-4. I mean, yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm kind of defeating my entire point here. But yeah, there are so many teams, and there are a few teams in the NFL that don't deserve to have the records they have. I mean, looking at the NFC East, Eagles at 8-3, they don't strike me as 8-3. Cowboys 5-1. Yeah, sure. Commanders 3-8. I mean, Jaden Daniels got hurt. Giants 2-10. I just went over why they shouldn't be 2-10. Bears 8-3. Yeah, no, get out of here. Get out of here. Nope. You guys are frauds. On what just God gives the Bears a home playoff game? Look at their point differential. They have a negative point differential, and they're 8-3 and leading the NFC North. And Ben Johnson's going to win Coach of the Year. Yep. Meanwhile, the Packers and Lions would stomp that team in a playoff game, and they're going to have to go on. They're going to have to go in the Soldier Field. Vikings 4-7. Fair. Bucks 6-5. Honestly, the Bucks minus 25 point differential. The entirety of the NFC South has a negative point differential. None of those teams deserve to be in the playoffs. What? Dude, the NFL is so... Dude, I would do unspeakable things for my team to be in the NFC South. Oh my God, the Giants would stomp like a bunch of these teams. I think they're about like, dude, the Panthers shouldn't be 6-5. Then the Falcons and who cares about the Falcons or Saints? Rams 9-2. Yeah, it's a 9-2 team. Seahawks 8-3. Niners 7-4. That's fair. Cardinals 3-8. Maybe they've blown a lot of leads in the fourth quarter. That team should be a little closer to 500. But yeah, this is just kind of a wacky year in the NFL. I mean, dude, the NFC West is a very ethical division. There are three teams in there that I just can't bring myself to dislike. Like, they just play good, sound, fundamental football. And that's something that changes. Like, I was literally just having a conversation with one of my friends. Like, it was around a week or two ago where we were talking about how our perceptions of teams that we like changes as we get older and as we start watching more football. Like, we were talking about teams who people just generally like. Like the Lions, they don't really strike me as a very likable team, to be honest. The only reason that people root for them is because, they've been bad for a long time, so we should root for them. But there are just certain teams that really don't deserve to be super liked. Like, to be honest, I mean, like the Bills have worn out their welcome. I don't really like them. Like, I'm not going to be one of those guys who's going to root for them because I feel bad for their fans. They had a million chances to take out Mahomes, and they have screwed up every single time, and they are very responsible for the Arrowhead monster that has covered the entire league. I don't like look at teams like the Jets. Like, I don't like that team. Like the Chargers, I don't like that team. Like, there's not a lot to really like about the quote unquote likable teams. It's like the Bears, dude. I don't like them. They don't deserve to be 8-3. Like, that's not good football. They're being rewarded for playing fluky ball, and I don't like it. Meanwhile, a team like the Packers even, they're weird. Like, they're weird. I don't like Jordan Love. Like, just no. The Vikings, no, get out of here. Speaking of the Vikings, dude, I need to take a victory lap on JJ McCarthy real quick. Everyone in this industry thought he was a top 10 pick, and I cannot for the life of me understand why. Go back to the tape. I hammered this point relentlessly during his draft year. He did nothing at Michigan. I looked at his tape. I watched over him because the Giants were in talks to get a quarterback that year. I wasn't impressed. He handed the ball off. He had an elite defense. And I don't understand why this is surprising to anyone. When JJ McCarthy was drafted 10th, everyone was like, wow, that's a good pick. JJ McCarthy, he's going to be a real franchise quarterback in Minnesota. Really? Half of the quarterbacks taken in the first round of that draft, they shouldn't have been taken there. Like JJ McCarthy, that was like the peak of quarterback value inflation. It's like the NFL, like after that, just needed to take a step back and be like, whoa, okay, we shouldn't be drafting a guy this high simply because he's a quarterback. And dude, JJ McCarthy, he's so bad. And dude, he shouldn't have been nowhere near the first round. I don't think he should have even been a day 2 guy. Third round at the earliest is where you draft a guy like JJ McCarthy. Like, honestly, do we talk about Shedeur Sanders, who just won his first game? I thought Shedeur Sanders was a better prospect in college than JJ McCarthy. And he fell all the way to the 5th round. Granted, it was because he was just a colossal jerk in his interviews, but JJ McCarthy is not at all an impressive quarterback. Even in college, when everybody thought he was a good prospect. Like, it's very rare when you see the entire NFL get it wrong on a guy who is not a top 3 prospect. But JJ McCarthy is one of those guys who was highly regarded and was seen as a franchise quarterback. And even off rip, I never saw it. I never saw it. And he is having just a historically bad start to his career. He tried to start this whole, I'm 9. Yeah, dude, like starting your own Jackson Dart gimmick. Dude, you're corny. You're corny. I'm never going to root for this guy. He is such a cornball. And again, he had to do nothing at Michigan. The only times where he was forced to do anything, he couldn't deliver. Sure, he could hit the checkdowns. He could do what he was schemed to do. And I guess that's what was so appealing about him. He was moldable. You can put him in a system. He'll do what the coach tells him to do. Yeah, and apparently that makes you a top 10 pick. Now, dude, imagine how bad things would be for the Giants right now if they actually took him over Malik Neighbors that year. That was a real conversation. That was a genuine fear that I had. And to be honest, if they took him 6, I don't know if I'd be a Giants fan right now. That would have been single-handedly the worst decision that the New York Giants have ever made. And that there's a lot of bad decisions, but I think that would be the worst decision ever. Because again, look now, imagine how bad the Giants situation would be if they had no Dart and no Neighbors. Imagine that. Imagine how bleak that situation would look. Oh my God. I mean, I guess Joe Shane would be fired and you'd be able to clean house. I know a lot of people want that. Again, you know my opinions on Joe Shane. I'm okay with him whether he stays or goes. I don't think he's the worst because everyone nails him for the 2023 draft. But look at that draft and tell me anybody who was a real difference maker. You can't. There's 3 guys. So I can't really harp on him for that. But yeah, imagine the Giants if JJ McCarthy was starting and they didn't have Malik Neighbors or Jackson Dart. That was a very realistic scenario. Very realistic. Okay, I'm going to throw it a break real quick. I'm going to briefly touch on Iona basketball and a little bit of baseball before we round some things out. We'll be back.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, this is Anthony Carlo, TV news reporter in New York City and proud alum. If you're looking for a career in media, Iona is the place to be. From internships to real-world experience, Iona's media program is unprecedented. Take it from an industry professional who made it in the biz.
Now back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
All right, we're back. Gonna talk some Iona basketball and some hot stove before we round out the show. Thought I'd have a little bit of time for hockey, but apparently we don't. Yo, dude, this basketball team, I gotta talk about them. Dude, they're still showing just incredible stuff. What a win on Saturday. My God, dude. Down 19 against Oregon State, clawed back in overtime, won in double overtime. And dude, this offense, it's still kicking. And the incredible thing is it's a different guy every night. Sometimes it's CJ Anthony, Toby Harris, Denver Anglin, Kozi Akamedu, Lamine Sabali. Just amazing. I'm loving what I'm seeing. These are all guys who can score from anywhere. Sure, I know they have a little bit of issues in the paint, but that's not their strength. They are just great shooters who can shoot from any range. They can shoot the three. And dude, Dangero's pro system, it's working. They shoot the three and they defend against it. Looking at the numbers, that quantifiably increases your chances of winning. And it's positionless basketball. It's aesthetically pleasing to watch. I love going to the games. It is a great, and it's just a really good team. And again, I still need to see how they do in MAC play. Because dude, Quinnipiac, they just beat Pitt in I think yesterday they just beat them. So that's that I don't like that at all. Especially considering, dude, like I hate Quinnipiac. I hate that school. But but they are killing their out of conference slate. They got Green Bay tonight, I think, at some point before to round out the Paradise Jam. But just resounding character is being built in this team. And I love it. And I'm really intrigued to see where it goes. And I'm rooting for them, obviously. I think this is a team that can make a lot of noise. I think this is a team that can win the MAC. And I think this is a team, fingers crossed, that can maybe go on a little run in March. That's the dream. We never did it under Lewis. We didn't do it under Patino. I believe in Danjero to get these guys to a place where they, because again, there's a lot of shooters. All it takes is just a few guys getting hot at the same time, and then you can do a lot in the big dance. Anyways, that'll be all for basketball. I just wanted to touch on that. We got bigger fish to fry in baseball. Yeah, we're finally talking a little bit of baseball. The stove's starting to heat up a little bit. The New York Mets traded Brandon Nimmo to the Texas Rangers for Marcus Semien. Straight up. This move kind of shocked me a little bit. I don't love the move, considering like Semien's not really a needle mover for me, especially considering he doesn't really have a great bat. But, he plays really good defense. I don't hate it. You're getting worse offensively, but that's only if you don't sign anyone to fill Nimmo's spot. And I think they are going out and signing a guy like Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker. But Brandon Nimmo, yet another Met who won't be a forever player, who started their career and ended their career as a New York Met. Cue Don LaGreca's Ed Kranepool rant. Pete Alonso might be heading out the door soon. So some changes happening in Queens. And David Stearns, I know a lot of people are divided on him. And to be honest, I think he needs to break out of the small market GM mentality. He needs to figure out that he can stack players because he can afford it. He's not dealing with an ownership group that's super cheap and won't let him spend the money. he shouldn't just trade a guy like Brandon Nimmo. He shouldn't let talent walk out the door simply because, oh, I want to do it and we can just get this guy. Maybe it'll be more cost effective or this or that. Because if you think about it, the big move was with Juan Soto. That was Steve Cohen. That was Steve Cohen just talking to Scott Boras and being like, oh, Hal Steinbrenner said this. Okay, I'll go here. And then that was ownership. That was not David Stearns. I don't think he really had anything to do with that. And I mean, Tariq Skubal, that's a move that I think, honestly, the Mets are going to make it. I think Tariq Skubal is going to be a Met next year because, I mean, Scott Boras, he has a good enough relationship with Steve Cohen. He has a good relationship with the Mets and the big money franchises because that's where all of his clients get the money. And I think the Mets, they show initiative during the offseason. I'll give them credit for this. They show initiative. And I think if they want to win, which I know they do, Steve Cohen cares. Say what you want about him, say what you will about how he handles everything else, but he cares about winning. And in the offseason, he will throw any exorbitant amount of money around and he will stamp any move that he knows will make the team that much better. And I think we're going to see Tariq Skubal end up as a New York Met. Granted, that's all up to David Stearns to make a big market move, but I think Steve Cohen's going to get on him enough for it, and I think Skubal's going to be pitching in Queens next year. Now, I want to just touch on the Yankees real quick before we wrap up, because I know I talked about the Mets and that while I was prepping for this. I was like, I might as well throw something at the Yankees real quick. Tetsuya Imaya's name has popped up, but let's be honest, dude, give me a break. He's going to be linked to them or the Yankees. Oh, they're going to be interested. They're interested. It's going to be like that for a month. Like, it's going to be all the episodes of Yankees Hot Stove are going to be them talking about, oh, the Yankees, they like Imai. They had meetings with them. They were productive. Aaron Boone was there. And then at the last second, he's going to sign with the Dodgers. So, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I would love him to come here. I love good Japanese players. Ever since Matsui, I've loved them. When Shohei Ohtani first got posted, I was banging my fist on the table to get him to the Bronx, but he clearly didn't want to go there. And, rest is history, 2 World Series titles later, and probably going to retire as the greatest player to ever, suit up on a baseball field. But anyways, back to kind of what I want the Yankees to do. I mean, if I'm going to make this team better, I'm letting Cody Bellinger walk for Kyle Tucker. Sure, Cody Bellinger's fine, but he's kind of inconsistent. And this team needs great players who are legit game changers who win. And Kyle Tucker is all of that. He's a star outfielder. You can put him in left, you can put him in right, and you can put Judge in center. And you exponentially increase your chances of winning a playoff series with a guy like Kyle Tucker in your lineup over Cody Bellinger. But to be honest, with the Yankees, I don't really think this championship window is still open. This is honestly the first offseason where I don't see a feasible path to them being World Series champs the following year. Because look at the contracts. They've got so much money tied up long-term to aging players. They have a lot of their players are aging a lot. Dear Judge, I mean, you're not going to get this out of him again. I think Judge is going to be really good, but I don't think he's going to be MVP of the league good. I think Garrett Cole, he's going to take a big step back. I mean, Fried and Rodon, you can't trust them in a playoff series. Schlittler is honestly the only guy who I really like in this rotation coming into next year. The bullpen, there's not really a lot of depth. And in the lineup, you got Judge, who's aging. I mean, Trent Grisham, you just tendered him. I mean, what do you do with Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones? I mean, they're not going to trade them because the Yankees don't trade prospects when they're valuable for good players. I just brought up Tariq Skubal. Boy, I'd love to trade. If Cam Schlittler, Spencer Jones, and Jason Dominguez were the trade package for Tariq Skubal, I would drive them to the airport myself. I would get on the flight with them. I would accommodate them in whatever way they need to be accommodated to end up in Detroit and have a safe trip there. I would book the hotel. Their tickets would be on me. First class. I'd take out loans to get their houses or apartments set up over there. But despite all of that, I think that the only you'd need honestly, you'd need a drastic move like trading for Tariq Skubal for me to believe that the Yankees can win the World Series next year. Because last year, I thought there was a chance that they could win the World Series. The year before that, I thought there was a chance for them. Year before that, yeah. Honestly, going back to 2018, the offseason where they traded for Giancarlo Stanton, I thought that there was a chance that they could win the World Series the following year. But with this group, I don't really think there's a chance for them anymore. I think they had a shot and they blew it. And I think you're going to see some things start to change. I think Brian Cashman, when he's done with his contract, he's going to transition to some different role. And then we're finally going to be rid of him in some capacity. But they're probably just going to promote someone from within and we're going to deal with the same thing. And so, sorry to end on a bit of a depressing note here. But again, thank you so much for tuning in, whoever did. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a nice break. I hope everybody gets all their work in order so they can really enjoy the break, getting ready for finals and all that. And Christmas time is coming. I'll be pretty fun. But anyways, this has been Woolley Mammoth Mondays. I have been Cam Woolley saying take care and have a good one.